Aikolo, Fudo, and Magahara Daisumi are on a date at the park. Daisumi has brought cookies she made for Fudo. She baked them this morning and isn't sure if they'll suit Fudo's taste. Fudo eagerly tries one and says they taste amazing. Daisumi is surprised but relieved that Fudo likes her cookies. As Fudo gazes at her, Daisumi asks what's on his mind. He says that being able to eat cookies made by his girlfriend on such a sunny day makes him feel like the happiest man in the galaxy. Daisumi calls him dramatic. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the cliff, the Gelatos are locked in battle against their enemies. Gelato 5 consists of 5 members: Blue, Yellow, Pink, Green, and Red, who is their leader. Gelato Blue takes down opponents with punches and kicks, while Gelato Yellow defeats enemies with powerful strikes. Gelato Pink shoots the enemies with her pistol, and Gelato Green's super punches clear the battlefield. Explosions echo around the cliffside as the fight continues. Back at the park, Fudo can't take his eyes off Daisumi, who looks stunning. He feels he could stare at her for hours. Daisumi, however, feels uneasy and asks him not to look at her like that, especially without blinking. She tells Fudo not to misunderstand. She doesn't dislike him, but she's just not used to it. Fudo has a serious request for Daisumi. He explains that relationship experts recommend couples hold hands, and he suggests they try it. Daisumi is taken aback, saying it's impossible because it's too soon for them. After all, this is only their 3rd date. Fudo counters by saying statistics show that couples usually hold hands by their 2nd or 3rd date. Daisumi is amazed at how bold couples in the world can be. Fudo extends his hand, but Daisumi hesitates. Their hearts pound as they wait for the moment. Slowly, Daisumi begins to reach for his hand. Just as their hands are about to meet, Gelato Blue suddenly appears and asks if Gelato Red is okay. Immediately, Fudo and Daisumi switch into battle mode. Fudo is Gelato Red, the leader of Gelato 5, while Daisumi is the combat commander of the secret organization Gakkao, known as the Princess of Death. Despite belonging to opposing factions, they've crossed the boundaries of their organizations to form a forbidden relationship. Their battle mode appears intense, but Gelato Blue decides not to interfere and leaves it to Gelato Red before returning to the fight below the cliff. Afterward, Fudo and Daisumi end their battle mode. Fudo points out that they were actually holding hands during the fight. Daisumi is touched and can't believe they managed to do it. She marks the date of their hand-holding in her notebook. Daisumi is Fudo's first girlfriend, and he's grateful he had the courage to confess back then. A week earlier at Gelato 5's headquarters, Fudo was exercising in the morning when Arisugawa Haru, Gelato Pink, approached him with a towel. Fudo thanked Haru and she invited him to a meeting. On their way there, they saw Ojino Hayato, Gelato Blue, trying to charm a girl. Hayato was enthusiastically asking her out, suggesting karaoke or a club, and boasting that she'd fall for him once she saw him dance. Unfortunately for him, the girl declined, claiming she was busy. Hayato persisted, leaving her no choice but to punch him. Haru and Fudo continued to the meeting room. On the way, they ran into Jinguji Misaki, Gelato Yellow, and Todoroki Daigo, Gelato Green. The team gathered just in time and headed into the meeting room. Professor Big Gelato, the leader of Gelato 5, was already there to welcome them. Daigo handed him the croissants the professor had requested, a snack intended for everyone during the meeting. The professor displayed an image of Death Princess Daisumi. She was a powerful combatant from Gakkao who had appeared 6 months ago. Gakkao, a secret organization aiming for world domination, had become a much more formidable enemy since her arrival. Professor Big Gelato warned the team to be careful. Suddenly, an alarm went off, signaling that Gekko's secret activities had been detected. The alarm ordered the Gelato team to depart immediately. At that moment, members of Gakkao, including the monster Culver and Bear, Death Princess, and the Moonlight Soldier troops, appeared in a park. Civilians hid in fear. The Gelato team arrived just in time to protect the people. They transformed using their freeze-change ability, turning into Gelatos in green, pink, yellow, blue, and red. Together, they proudly declared themselves the freezing Sente Gelato 5. Gelato Red proclaimed that anyone who underestimated them would pay the price. Unfazed, the Gakkao monsters declared that today was the day they would take revenge and ordered their soldiers to attack. Gelato Red used his Strawberry Impact sword to defeat enemies in a single powerful slash. Gelato Yellow fought back with his Megaton Lemon Crush hammer, smashing through the attacking soldiers. Gelato Pink unleashed a volley of arrows from her Sky Peach Rain bow, taking out surrounding enemies. Gelato Green used his Vacuum Pistachio Strike, causing explosive damage to those nearby. Meanwhile, Gelato Blue skillfully wielded his twin soda slash knives, cutting down enemies as they approached. The Gelato heroes were incredible, quickly eliminating Gecko's soldiers. However, the real challenge began as Culver and Bear and Death Princess stepped forward. Gelato Red instructed the rest of the team to handle Culver and Bear while he faced Death Princess one-on-one. The battle between Gelato Red and Death Princess was fierce. She swung her flail with incredible strength, disarming Gelato Red's sword. The two engaged in hand-to-hand combat, their skills equally matched. Gelato Red managed to trip Death Princess, but her agility was unparalleled. She balanced herself mid-air and countered with a double kick, sending Gelato Red flying backward. Their power and abilities were evenly matched, making them perfect rivals. Just as their fight was about to continue, Culver and Bear raised a white flag, signaling his surrender. He ordered all Gecko forces to retreat immediately. Before leaving, Death Princess acknowledged Gelato Red as the only one capable of matching her strength, calling it fate. She smiled at him and said, "Until we meet again." Gelato Red was left stunned by her words. That afternoon, Fudo resumed his training. Professor Big Gelato observed him and admired his dedication, noting how Fudo fought battles in the morning and trained again in the afternoon. The professor even referred to him as a model hero who constantly worked hard. Fudo trained tirelessly until the evening, ending his routine by consuming a raw egg to maintain his stamina. The professor, bewildered, asked what kind of life Fudo was leading since it seemed to revolve entirely around muscle training. Fudo admitted that there was something on his mind. Professor Big Gelato assumed Fudo was contemplating world peace or the meaning of justice. To his surprise, Fudo revealed that he was thinking about a girl he liked. Shocked, the professor pressed for details, and Fudo confessed it was love at first sight. This was the first time Fudo had ever fallen in love. Professor Big Gelato asked if Fudo had confessed his feelings yet. Fudo said it was impossible for him to confess because he was a hero and they lived in completely different worlds. Professor Big Gelato smacked him on the head, calling him an idiot. He reminded Fudo that there was nothing wrong with a hero falling in love since he was human too. The professor encouraged Fudo to express his feelings, saying love could help him grow as a person. Motivated by his mentor's words, Fudo quickly excused himself to go confess. Professor Big Gelato, who had always thought of Fudo as nothing more than a muscle-obsessed guy, was taken aback. He now saw Fudo as a true man. Curiosity got the better of him, and he wondered what kind of girl could have stolen Fudo's heart. A nurse, perhaps? The professor chuckled to himself, admitting that he too had a thing for nurses. Fudo soon found Desumi and approached her privately, catching her off guard. Surprised, Desumi assumed Fudo was there to resume their earlier battle. She prepared herself, thinking it would be better to settle things right then and there. However, Fudo stood silently, making her suspicious. "What's with you?" she asked, growing impatient. Taking a deep breath, Fudo finally blurted out, "I love you." The confession shocked Desumi. Fudo explained that he had fallen for her the first time they met and wanted her to know how he felt. Desumi, still in disbelief, called him insane, reminding him that they were mortal enemies. Fudo insisted he wasn't crazy. Desumi, skeptical, wondered if he might have hit his head during the fight. But Fudo countered, saying he even had Professor Big Gelato's approval. Desumi didn't buy it. She accused Fudo of trying to trick her, thinking he knew she was inexperienced in love and was mocking her as a joke. Feeling insulted, Desumi swung her flail at him. Fudo dodged and protested, "That's not what I meant at all." Still enraged, Desumi called him a cunning demon and kept attacking, but Fudo refused to fight back, dodging her strikes instead. Desumi then claimed that no one could like her because her friends spread rumors that she ate raw bear meat. Fudo dismissed the rumor, pointing out that Desumi actually liked pancakes and pasta. Startled, Desumi demanded to know how he knew that, but she kept attacking him. She brought up another rumor, saying her friends claimed she drank wild boar blood, but Fudo shouted that it was untrue. Desumi preferred green smoothies. As she launched another barrage of attacks, Desumi exclaimed that her friends also gossiped about her going out at night to beat up strong men. Fudo corrected her again, saying she spent her nights doing Pilates. Infuriated, Desumi screamed that she was a killing machine from outer space and swung her flail with all her might. Fudo caught the flail mid-swing and calmly said, "No, you're a girl from Hakata." Desumi froze, stunned. "How do you know all this about me?" she asked. Fudo admitted that he had looked up all of her social media. He revealed that the account name Protemen that often commented on her posts was actually him. Fudo smiled and said, "You're not a killing machine." You take care of your nails, you love pretty accessories, and you change your perfume depending on your mood. Isn't that who you really are?" Hearing this, Desumi couldn't help but feel flustered. Desumi said that a girl should be swinging a flail, but Fudo replied that he would always be there to catch it. Desumi reminded him that they were enemies, but Fudo insisted there had to be a way for them to make it work. He then asked Desumi, "Will you be my partner?" Desumi immediately shot him down, saying it was impossible. However, Fudo kept assuring her that he was serious. Hearing his sincerity, Desumi's resolve began to soften, and she eventually accepted Fudo's love. Fudo was stunned that she had agreed. Desumi admitted that she had no idea what dating was supposed to be like. Fudo confessed he didn't know either because Desumi was his first love. By their third date, things were going smoothly. Desumi talked about her cat, surprising Fudo, who hadn't known she had a pet. She teased him, saying it was ridiculous that he didn't know about her cat. Fudo apologized, admitting there was still so much he didn't know about her. To make it up to him, Desumi took out her phone and showed him a picture of her cat. The cat's name was Halko, and she proudly said, "Isn't she just the cutest?" Fudo, however, was startled by the photo, not because of the cat, but because the mirror in the background showed Desumi's reflection clearly taken after she had just showered. Overwhelmed by the sight, Fudo couldn't hide his happiness. Desumi, oblivious to what Fudo was reacting to, assumed he was gushing over how cute Halko was. "You're being over the top," she said. "I'm not exaggerating at all," Fudo replied with a smile. "Just being here with you makes me happy." Blushing, Desumi shyly admitted that she felt the same. Still, Desumi reminded him that no one could know about their relationship. If anyone found out, they wouldn't be able to stay together, and it might even become national news. Fudo understood and promised to keep it a secret, even though he wasn't very skilled at hiding things. Desumi expressed her hope that someday they might live in a world where they could openly date. Fudo looked at her earnestly and said, "Desumi, I love you so much." Suddenly, Misaki, the yellow gelato, appeared at the top of the cliff and called out to Fudo, asking if he was done yet. In an instant, both Fudo and Desumi switched back to battle mode. Desumi launched a relentless attack on Fudo, hitting him with her Death Rumba technique, which sent him flying. Realizing she might have gone too far, Desumi hesitated. Misaki quickly rushed to Fudo's side to check on him. Fudo, lying on the ground, grinned and called Desumi incredible. He promised he would get her back next time and suggested they meet again soon. Desumi, smiling, accepted his challenge and said she'd be ready anytime, even the day after tomorrow. As Desumi left, Misaki asked Fudo if he was okay. He reassured her with a determined smile, saying he was just fine. And so began the forbidden love story between a defender of justice and a warrior from an evil organization. The Gecko forces launched another attack on Gelato 5. All the Gecko soldiers had been defeated, leaving only Desumi, the Princess of Death, for them to face. Daigo, the green gelato, attempted to strike her, but Desumi effortlessly sent him sprawling to the ground. Finally, Fudo, the red gelato, stepped forward to confront her. They lock eyes for a moment before beginning their battle. Desumi launched her attack, but Fudo kept evading her strikes. She landed a punch square on Fudo's chest with a sly smile. Suddenly, Fudo hurled Desumi into the air. She quickly swung her flail toward him, but Fudo easily deflected it. Desumi admitted that Fudo was much stronger than the rumors had suggested. Fudo, in turn, found himself captivated by Desumi's face. One morning, Hero TV aired an intense battle between Gelato 5 and Gecko. The action was extreme as the heroes of Gelato 5 fought for world peace. At the center of the coverage, the red gelato was facing off against the Princess of Death, a clash between formidable warriors. Viewers at home cheered for Gelato 5. During their fight, Fudo discreetly signaled to Desumi the moves he was about to make. A feint with a left hook followed by a low right kick, and he asked her to be careful. Desumi responded with her own signal, indicating she would block the kick and counter with a high kick. She even told Fudo to duck at the right moment. With their plans set, they began their choreographed battle. Desumi smiled, complimenting Fudo on his skill. Fudo suggested they move to a different location. Hero TV followed their movements closely, speculating that they were preparing for an epic one-on-one showdown. The two moved behind a shipping container, glancing around to ensure no one was watching. It turned out that Fudo, the leader of Gelato 5, and Desumi, the leader of Gecko's combat forces, were secretly dating. They stopped fighting and began chatting. Fudo remarked that they were sitting farther apart than usual. Desumi replied that this wasn't unusual for her. Fudo moved closer, insisting that they usually sat much closer together. Desumi, flustered, asked him to stop approaching her. She explained that she had been moving around a lot that day and was worried she might smell sweaty. Ignoring her protests, Fudo moved closer and assured her that no matter how she smelled, he wouldn't back away. Desumi turned her back to him, feeling self-conscious. She was too nervous to meet his gaze, but occasionally stole glances at him. Fudo confessed he had never met a girl as enchanting as Desumi. Fudo then took out his phone and started taking pictures of her. Annoyed, Desumi asked what he was doing. Fudo admitted that he found her beautiful even when she was angry and kept snapping photos. Initially, Desumi tolerated it, but she soon lost her patience. She punched Fudo, demanding he stop. She suggested taking a photo together instead and grabbed her phone. They positioned themselves for a selfie, but their faces weren't fully in the frame. Desumi urged Fudo and moved closer. As they got closer, their hearts raced. This was undeniably the closest they had ever been during a meeting. Fudo marveled at the scary magic of the camera. The gentle breeze tousled Desumi's hair, and Fudo found himself mesmerized by her fragrance. Desumi told Fudo, who had his eyes closed, to open them. They took a selfie together, but suddenly Misaki, the yellow gelato, called out to Fudo. Before Fudo could even pretend to resume their fight, Misaki was already standing in front of him. Misaki praised Fudo for defeating Desumi. It was only then that Fudo realized Desumi was pretending to be unconscious. Misaki continued to compliment him for his supposed victory. Fudo tried to persuade Misaki to leave the area, but she reminded him that they had a TV interview scheduled before returning to their base. A news helicopter had already arrived and started filming. A reporter quickly approached Fudo for an interview, broadcasting it live, which thrilled the kids watching at home. The reporter asked if Fudo had indeed defeated the Princess of Death and saved world peace. Fudo simply replied with a yes. The reporter then asked if the Princess of Death was as strong and fearsome as everyone said, and what Fudo's opinion of her was. Fudo answered that the Princess of Death was someone irreplaceable. He confessed that just seeing her made his heart race, that she kept him awake at night, and that he had spent entire days thinking about her. Hearing this, Desumi, who was hiding behind them, blushed deeply, her heart screaming in embarrassment. The reporter noticed a slight movement from Desumi and commented on it, but Fudo dismissed it, saying it was probably just her imagination. Desumi wished she could disappear at that moment, overwhelmed by the situation. The reporter then asked if the Princess of Death was a rival who motivated Fudo to grow stronger, given that he might be in the prime of his youth. She also asked if Fudo had a girlfriend, as many fans were eager to know. Fudo hesitated, wanting to say he did have a girlfriend. Suddenly, Misaki burst into laughter, saying it was impossible for Fudo to have a girlfriend since all he ever thought about from morning to night was training his muscles. The reporter seemed disappointed, noting that Fudo's adorable personality probably charmed many female fans. Misaki teased him further, saying he needed to understand women's hearts better. She jokingly announced that Gelato Red was opening a dating app where fans could go on virtual dates with him, and details would be displayed on TV. The reporter even expressed interest in trying out the app herself. After the interview ended, the Hero TV crew left. Fudo went back to Desumi, who was sitting by herself and pouting. Fudo asked if she was upset. Desumi denied being angry but admitted she was annoyed, saying it was obvious Fudo was so popular with many female fans. Fudo assured her she didn't need to worry because he belonged to her and only her. Desumi didn't believe him. Fudo insisted he would do anything for her. Desumi asked if he really meant it, and when Fudo confirmed, she said she wanted to go on a date with him. She explained that she had always dreamed of going on a date with her boyfriend, and never thought she would get the chance. A date, she said, was an opportunity for a couple to spend time together and get to know each other better. Fudo confidently said that going on a date would be easy. Desumi was pleasantly surprised by his enthusiasm and agreed. Fudo suggested they meet at Central Park at 5 p.m. the next day. Overjoyed, Desumi hurried off. However, once she was gone, Fudo realized he didn't know what people actually did on dates. He started browsing the internet for date ideas, only to find an overwhelming number of suggestions: visiting a planetarium, going to an amusement park, watching a movie, having dinner, shopping, going to an aquarium, driving around, visiting a zoo, and many more. Fudo felt completely lost, unsure of what to choose, especially with the date happening the next day. Misaki approached Fudo and asked what he was doing, wondering if he was researching muscles again. Fudo caught a whiff of Sekai Misaki and guessed she might be a little drunk. Misaki apologized for promoting the dating app on TV the day before, which had led Fudo to start learning about dating. Fudo admitted he didn't understand what an ideal date was supposed to be. Misaki reassured him that there were no strict rules for dating, and all he needed to do was think about activities they could enjoy together. Suddenly, Fudo felt a breakthrough as the rigid walls in his mind crumbled, and he finally grasped the essence of dating. The next day, Fudo arrived at Central Park, bustling with civilians. It seemed no one recognized his flawless disguise, ensuring his important date wouldn't be interrupted. As the time drew closer, he began to feel nervous. Desumi called out to him, apologizing for keeping him waiting. Fudo was mesmerized by Desumi's casual outfit, finding her absolutely stunning. Desumi admitted she felt a little shy meeting him like this in public. She complimented Fudo's disguise, saying his glasses and hairstyle suited him perfectly. Desumi then asked what they would be doing. Fudo confidently said he had planned everything and showed her his meticulously crafted date itinerary. They both got excited to start, with their first stop being a gym, specifically the Bisarka Nico Gym, Gotana branch. At the gym, they worked out together, drawing attention from the other patrons, who praised how amazing both Desumi and Fudo looked. Fudo complimented Desumi, telling her that her triceps were really developing. Acting like her personal gym coach, he encouraged her further. Afterward, Fudo announced they would go for a run, surprising Desumi. The two ran side by side. Fudo realized that exercising together was much more fun than training alone, making this date feel extraordinary to him. As the sun began to set, they sat down on a bench. Fudo asked if Desumi was hungry and suggested they eat something. Desumi thought he was planning to take her to dinner, and she was thrilled at the idea. Fudo also mentioned wanting to have a meaningful conversation with her. Excited, Desumi stood up ready to go, but instead, Fudo handed her a low-calorie snack. He revealed he had packed plenty of such snacks in his bag. Fudo then said there was something he wanted to discuss with Desumi. With a serious tone, he asked, "What insect do you think would be the strongest if it were enlarged?" Desumi didn't respond. Instead, she excused herself to go to the restroom. Oblivious to her reaction, Fudo believed the date was going perfectly. He still had the main event planned, a human anatomy exhibit, which he was confident Desumi would enjoy. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Misaki. She told him to forget her advice from the day before, admitting that she had been drunk and now realized there were indeed some rules to dating. Fudo asked her to share those rules with him for reference. Misaki explained that appearance mattered first. She guessed Fudo was probably wearing a tight tank top, which was a no-go. She advised him to dress neatly. Since girls often put effort into their appearance, he should avoid activities that would make them sweaty or dirty. She also recommended reserving a nice restaurant for dinner. Lastly, she emphasized the importance of simple conversation, such as talking about food. Fudo suddenly remembered the ridiculous insect question he had asked Desumi earlier and was struck by regret. After Misaki hung up, he blamed himself for ruining the date. Realizing this wasn't a proper date at all, he concluded it was no wonder Desumi had returned from the restroom. Feeling guilty, Fudo decided to go find her and apologize, vowing to plan a date that Desumi would genuinely enjoy. Fudo searched for Desumi everywhere, even checking behind bushes. Desperate, he begged silently for her to give him one more chance. Tears began to well up in his eyes when, out of nowhere, Desumi appeared in front of him. She looked at him curiously and asked, "What are you doing?" Fudo was taken aback and exclaimed, surprised to see Desumi had returned. Desumi explained that she had just come back from the store where she had gone to buy drinks. The shop was packed with people, so it took her some time. Eating those low-calorie snacks had made her mouth dry, so she bought drinks for both of them. She mentioned that she knew how it felt because she sometimes ate those snacks herself. Desumi then suggested they finally discuss the strong insects Fudo had mentioned earlier. Fudo blurted out, "That's impossible." Confused, Desumi asked what he meant by that. Fudo hesitantly asked if she didn't hate this date. Desumi looked puzzled and asked why he was acting so strange. Reluctantly, Fudo confessed everything to her. Hearing his story, Desumi burst into laughter, leaving Fudo unsure of how to react. He nervously asked if she wasn't mad at him. Desumi reassured him, saying, "How could I be mad at you?" She explained that now she knew Fudo had been just as nervous about the date as she was. Desumi expressed her happiness, saying she was grateful Fudo had gone to the trouble of planning the date for her. She admitted that she enjoyed spending time with him, even if others might think their date was a bit unusual. Smiling warmly, Desumi encouraged them to just relax and have fun. Fudo felt a rush of emotion as he looked at her, a feeling that reminded him of the first time they had truly connected. Lost in the moment, Fudo stood silently, which prompted Desumi to call out to him. They realized, somewhat awkwardly, that they were holding hands. Their hearts raced and their faces inched closer together when suddenly an emergency call interrupted them. The two of them quickly ended their date and hurried to respond to the situation. The monster Gecko Culver and Bear and his minions had arrived, seeking revenge against Gelato 5. Blue Gelato scoffed at their attempts, saying, "No matter how many times you come at us, the result will always be the same." The battle began, but Death Princess and Red Gelato stood frozen, caught up in their lingering feelings from the date. At Gecko's women's dormitory, pets were allowed. The dorm housed many female staff members working for the secretive Gecko Association. Desumi had a pet cat named Helcow, who was her beloved companion. Known to the world as Deaf Princess, a name that struck fear into many, Desumi at home was the complete opposite of her fearsome reputation. In her private moments, she was sensitive, clumsy, and prone to loneliness. She didn't even fully understand matters of romance and often poured her heart out to Halkao. She once shared with her cat how a rumor at work claimed she liked eating raw bear meat, which she found both amusing and absurd. One evening, Desumi returned to her room looking dazed. Halkao was concerned, but Desumi seemed enchanted, smiling more than usual. She had even started collecting pictures of Fudo, capturing his face when it appeared on TV, reading newspaper articles about red gelato, and preparing enthusiastically for their date. Her happiness was palpable, and she looked more radiant than ever. Desumi even decorated her room with a photo of her and Fudo together, cherishing the memory. Her affection for him was undeniable, and it was clear to anyone, especially Halkao, that Fudo had become an important part of her life. Misaki and Professor Big Gelato were deeply engrossed in a game of Uno, while Fudo was busy training his body. Professor Big Gelato asked Misaki if Gakko had shown any activity lately. Misaki replied that it had been 2 weeks of complete silence from them. With no battles to fight, things felt peaceful. Fudo agreed that peace was ideal and thought it was better if there were no fights. However, without battles, he could meet Desumi. Recently, Fudo hadn't been sleeping well. He felt deprived of Desumi's presence and decided he had to do something about it. Suddenly, the emergency alarm blared. The alert informed them that a new weapon development had been detected at Gakko's headquarters. The team had to infiltrate their base and destroy the weapon. This mission was extremely dangerous, practically a suicide mission. But someone had to do it. Since the pink and blue gelatos were away and the green gelato was on leave, it came down to either Misaki or Fudo. One of them had to stay behind for backup. Misaki volunteered to go, but Fudo insisted he should handle the mission. Misaki reminded him of the danger, but Fudo was determined. As Misaki tried to stop him, Professor Big Gelato asked her to understand how serious Fudo was. Fudo activated his transformation, becoming the red gelato, and set off for Gakko's base. Misaki called out to him, telling him to come back safely and calling him an idiot. Professor Big Gelato, however, called Fudo a true hero. Fudo was thrilled. This mission meant he could see Desumi again. Meanwhile, the Reaper Princess Desumi walked down the hallway as all the Moonlight Army soldiers saluted her. As she passed, a few soldiers whispered about her. They commented on her intense aura, which was more intimidating than usual, and assumed she was in a bad mood. But the truth was quite the opposite. Desumi was miserable because she hadn't seen Fudo in 2 weeks. Desumi asked the soldiers when they would fight the heroes again. Terrified, they misinterpreted her question as bloodlust and knelt before her, apologizing for not knowing the answer. Still distracted, Desumi recalled the horoscope she had seen on TV. It had predicted bad luck for Leos, stating they wouldn't meet the person they longed for, and that their lucky item was a cute bag. Following the advice, she carried a cute bag, but hadn't helped. Suddenly, Culverin Bear, a gecko monster, approached her and showed her a new weapon called the Neo-Culverin Cannon. He confidently declared that it would destroy the heroes. Culverin Bear then asked if Desumi had any dangerous items of her own. She replied that her bag was just an ordinary one. However, Culverin Bear misunderstood, believing it to be a cleverly disguised weapon. He called Desumi a terrifying woman, convinced her ordinary bag was a decoy, meant to lull enemies into a false sense of security. In truth, the bag only contained makeup. Hearing his comments made Desumi feel that she wasn't suited to cute things. As Desumi walked down the hall, Fudo suddenly appeared from the ceiling, startling her. He told her he had been searching for her because he missed her so much. Desumi admitted she was happy to see him too, but almost let her emotions take over. She quickly ushered him into her changing room to avoid being seen. Fudo was delighted to be there, commenting that the room was just as feminine as he'd imagined. Desumi asked why Fudo had done something so reckless. He confessed that he simply couldn't bear not seeing her. Desumi, surprised, admitted she had felt the same way but still believed his actions were too dangerous. Fudo pulled out a deck of Uno cards and invited her to play. Desumi, unable to resist, agreed, and the two began their game of Uno. Meanwhile, back at Gakko's base, Professor Big Gelato and Misaki were still waiting for news from Fudo. Misaki asked if there had been any updates, but there was no word yet. All they could do now was trust Fudo. Little did they know, Fudo was happily playing Uno with Desumi at that very moment. Desumi won the game and decided to give Fudo a punishment. She told him to hold out his hand, and he obeyed. Just as Desumi was about to slap his hand, Fudo remarked that her hand was warm. This immediately made Desumi's heart melt. She told him not to say such things because it made it hard to punish him. Suddenly, a report came in for the Reaper Princess. Desumi quickly moved Fudo's face out of the camera's view and sat on him to hide him. A soldier reported that an intruder had been detected in the base and reminded everyone to stay on high alert. Desumi assured him she understood and that they would remain cautious. The soldier mentioned that he thought he had seen the shadow of a man earlier, but Desumi brushed it off, saying he must have been mistaken. She laughed, joking that it would be impossible for the Reaper Princess to have a boyfriend, and ended the call. Afterward, Desumi apologized to Fudo and asked if he was okay. Before Fudo could respond, Culver and Bear burst into the changing room. Desumi quickly hid Fudo, but in her panic, she ended up stuffing them both into a box. The small, cramped space forced their bodies to press together. Fudo felt suffocated and started squirming. Desumi told him to stop moving so much, but Fudo complained that something was on his face, making it hard to breathe. He tried to remove it, but the movement caused the box to creak, catching Culver and Bear's attention. Just as Culver and Bear approached the box, Fudo finally managed to remove the object, which turned out to be a bra. Desumi screamed and slapped Fudo hard enough to send him flying out of the box. He crashed into Culver and Bear, causing the weapon the monster was carrying to activate. The weapon exploded, destroying Gakko's base. Meanwhile, a report came in stating that the mission was a success. The signal from the new weapon had vanished and Gakko's base was destroyed. Hearing this, Professor Big Gelato was overjoyed and praised Fudo's extraordinary efforts. Back at the now-burning Gakko base, Fudo and Desumi escaped to a nearby hill. Fudo apologized to Desumi, but she turned the apology back on herself, saying she should have welcomed him properly when he arrived. Desumi noticed a scratch on Fudo's cheek, but he assured her it was nothing. She asked him to crouch for a moment and then gently placed a bandage on his cheek. Fudo thanked her. He complimented the cute bag she was carrying, saying it suited her perfectly. Desumi beamed with happiness at the compliment. Fudo admitted that he should have thought of it earlier and handed Desumi his phone number, saying they could talk anytime now. Blushing, Desumi asked if it was okay to call him that night. Fudo agreed, telling her she could call him that evening. That night in her room, Desumi was nervously preparing to call Fudo. She tried to calm her racing heart, telling herself she just wanted to check that he got home safely. Finally, she dialed the number Fudo had given her. To her surprise, it was answered by Fudo's mother. In the background, Desumi could hear Fudo asking his mom to hand him the phone, explaining that it was for him. His mother scolded him for still being home when she had told him to go buy milk. Fudo finally took the phone and asked if it was Desumi. She firmly told him to get a cell phone, and Fudo quickly agreed. The Gakko monster, Culver and Bear, was busy fixing the Gakko base's gate when suddenly an announcement was made calling for a morning meeting, and all executives were required to attend in the conference room. Culver and Bear hit the gate so hard that the Gakko emblem on the door was knocked down. Gakko's supreme leader, Bosslar, led their regular meeting. He said that thanks to the hard work of everyone, Gakko had accumulated a lot of negative energy. Bosslar also mentioned that the birth of a new monster, Ultimate Phantom, was drawing near. The secret Gakko Association, led by Bosslar, used human negative emotions as a source of power to create the Ultimate Phantom, a monster designed to dominate the world. In order to collect the remaining negative energy they needed, Bosslar asked everyone to propose their next 3 targets. The Beast Princess pressed her button and said she didn't care about the targets, she just wanted to get to the fighting part. However, Bosslar reminded her that this meeting was for determining the targets. Next, it was Kuroyuri Kyoko, the Steel Princess's turn to speak. She wanted some time to think it over. Bosslar, annoyed, told her that if she needed time to think, she shouldn't have pressed the button. Then the Hot Princess pressed her button, but unfortunately, she couldn't speak. Bosslar was getting frustrated, so he asked them for a more practical suggestion. Desumi, the Death Princess, pressed her button and suggested that their next target should be the view of the city at night. Bosslar dismissed it, saying it was too abstract. Desumi pressed her button again and suggested an aquarium, but Bosslar refused because it would be difficult to fight indoors. Desumi didn't give up and pressed her button once more, proposing an amusement park. Bosslar grew even more annoyed, asking if Desumi was suggesting a date spot. Culver and Bear, the Gakko monster, chimed in, saying that amusement parks were filled with helpless people. Kyoko agreed, saying it would be a great place to rampage freely. The Beast Princess praised Desumi's sleigh idea. Finally, Bosslar agreed that their next target would be the amusement park, and Desumi was pleased with the outcome. Meanwhile, Fudo was reading a book on tips for using his new phone. Just then, his phone rang and he was clearly not used to the sound. He checked the message and saw that Desumi had sent him information about Gakko's next target, the amusement park they planned to visit, Yomiuraland. The two met at an old factory where Desumi jokingly wished that they could meet at a date spot for once. They began discussing different places for a date. Fudo suggested an aquarium, while Desumi was interested in the city's night view. The amusement park was also on the table, and Fudo jokingly called it a dream within a dream. The dream they had talked about earlier was finally coming true. Desumi sent a message telling him that the attack on the amusement park would take place this coming Sunday, which was only 3 days away. She also mentioned that she couldn't wait to meet him. Fudo laughed, teasing Desumi for leaking confidential information about her evil association. Fudo needed to respond, but he was still figuring out how to use his phone. Professor Big Gelato couldn't help but laugh at Fudo, who still didn't understand how to use it. Misaki asked what exactly Fudo was doing, and Big Gelato explained that Fudo had only started using his phone the day before. Misaki was shocked. She hadn't expected Fudo, the muscle man, to have a phone. As Fudo spoke into his phone saying that he would go to the amusement park on Sunday, Misaki began to suspect that something was up with him. She became curious and decided that she would investigate further later. On Sunday, Misaki and Haru disguised themselves and went to the amusement park. Misaki was eager to uncover Fudo's secret. Haru asked Misaki not to follow Fudo around because Fudo wasn't someone who would keep secrets. Misaki replied that even though Haru said that, she ended up coming along anyway. Haru tagged along because she didn't want Misaki to act rudely. Suddenly, they saw Fudo surrounded by kids asking to take photos with him. It turned out he was patrolling as usual. Haru praised Fudo for always thinking about world peace. Gakao Monster, Culver and Bear saw them and was puzzled. He wondered why a hero was there, someone wearing pink and yellow at the same time. He became suspicious, wondering if they had figured out Gecko's movements. Left with no choice, Culver and Bear decided to retreat and regroup, but Desumi said that since they had been spotted, it was time to fight. Desumi ran toward Fudo. When Fudo saw Desumi approaching, she apologized for being late. She almost called him by his name, but quickly corrected herself, calling him Red instead. Fudo activated his freeze change and transformed into Red Gelato. This caused the kids to panic. He immediately instructed everyone to take cover. The Gakko troops moved closer, and Culver and Bear praised Fudo for figuring out their plan. Misaki was surprised to learn that Fudo had come there knowing the enemy's plans. Haru said, just like she had told Misaki before, Fudo wouldn't keep things secret, and Misaki began to believe her. Misaki and Haru also activated Freeze Change, turning into yellow and pink gelatos. Just as Red Gelato was about to face Desumi, Misaki and Haru approached, saying they would help him. Fudo told them not to come closer, but Misaki and Haru attacked the Moonlight soldiers who were surrounding them. Misaki now believed Haru's words that Fudo was still the same as always. The Fudo Haru knew was honest, innocent, and always serious about everything. And that was why he was their leader. Fudo got ready to attack Desumi, but then they started talking about where to go for a date. Misaki and Haru continued to fight off the incoming enemies. Meanwhile, Fudo was enjoying the amusement park with Desumi. They rode the roller coaster, swings, spinning rides, carousel, and Ferris wheel. Desumi was shocked to see that Fudo got dizzy from riding the Ferris wheel. Fudo, too, was surprised by how dizzy he got, realizing that he was weak for getting sick just from the Ferris wheel. Desumi moved to sit next to Fudo. They both realized they now knew each other's hidden sides, and it was a good thing for their relationship. They held hands again. Desumi asked if Fudo was feeling better now. Fudo felt strange. Although he felt uncomfortable riding the Ferris wheel earlier, now he didn't want to touch the ground again. From the top, they could see that the battle had already ended, so Fudo and Desumi decided to head back. Desumi said that it seemed like they had gone a bit overboard today, and Fudo admitted that the amusement park was scary. Meanwhile, Misaki had done a lot of shopping and was happy carrying home so many things. Haru noticed some photos displayed and was surprised to see a photo of Fudo riding a ride. Fudo's mom called Desumi's number, thinking it was Haruta. She told her that Fudo had bought a dinosaur keychain from the amusement park and joked that he was still like a child. Desumi could only sigh as she listened to Fudo's mom. She didn't even know who this Haruta was. That day, Desumi was invited to go home with her two friends after school. Desumi, a high school student in the city, kept her true identity a secret. Along the way, her friends asked how her club activities were going. Desumi explained that there was exam preparation that day. They invited her to go karaoke with them, but she declined, saying she had work to do. Her friends teased her, asking how she'd ever get a boyfriend if she was always so busy. Desumi just laughed it off. Curious, they asked if she was currently interested in anyone. Desumi replied that it was a secret. Suddenly, they spotted Fudo sitting with Haru at a cafe. Desumi was shocked to see the scene. Fudo and Haru looked very close. Her friends, knowing Haru was the new member of Gelato Pink, remarked how cute she looked. They even guessed that Fudo and Haru might be dating since they seemed like a perfect match. Unable to bear it, Desumi burst into tears and ran away. Meanwhile, Fudo asked Haru why she had asked to meet him, as it wasn't like her. Haru apologized, knowing how busy Fudo was. Fudo encouraged her to share what was on her mind. Nervously, Haru hesitated, unsure if her question was appropriate. She was curious about a photo taken at the amusement park. She asked if it really was Fudo in the picture, and if so, who the girl next to him was. Haru was visibly unsure whether it was right to ask such a personal question. Noticing her hesitation, Fudo smiled and said he understood what she was trying to ask. He reached into his bag and pulled out a muscle training guidebook and a protein shake, handing them to her. He confidently declared that these items would solve all her problems. Haru was bewildered. Fudo explained that since Haru had been part of the gelato team for 6 months, it was time for her to start drinking protein shakes because her physical training hadn't shown much improvement. He suggested she follow the workout guide for the next 6 months to build an unbeatable physique. Haru attempted to clarify that she was asking about the photo, not training, but Fudo interpreted her concern as worry about her physical fitness. He enthusiastically pointed out that the guidebook detailed everything with photos and that the exercises were designed to minimize strain. He assured her that even with her small frame, she wouldn't find it difficult, especially if she started with stretches to prevent injury. He also highlighted how the guidebook's charts would improve her muscle flexibility and speed up recovery time. Fudo concluded his long explanation by saying that achieving an ideal body takes effort and dedication. Haru, realizing Fudo's obliviousness to romance, became even more convinced that he didn't have a girlfriend and was solely focused on his muscle training. Fudo reassured her that hard work never betrays, implying this was the answer she had been seeking all along. Grateful for his advice, Haru thanked him and felt reassured. Suddenly, the gelato team received an emergency call. They quickly rushed to the scene. The Gakko monster Culverin Bear was wreaking havoc, destroying buildings with his Culverin cannon. He and the Gakko soldiers were preparing to level the city. However, the Gelato 5 arrived just in time to stop them. Culverin Bear, anticipating their arrival, rallied his troops, vowing revenge. The Reaper Princess, Desumi, led the charge against the heroes. Fudo braced himself for the attack. He jokingly asked Desumi what they would talk about today, but she immediately kicked him in the head, sending him flying. Fudo realized he had miscalculated the timing of her strike. As Desumi approached him, preparing to swing her flail, Fudo tried to signal that he would dodge and retreat. However, Desumi ignored his signal entirely. The flail struck Fudo, and he winced in pain. He suggested they move to another location, but Desumi refused and continued attacking him relentlessly. She then unleashed her Death Whirlwind technique, a move Fudo had never seen before. The powerful gust swept Fudo off his feet and hurled him into an abandoned building. As Desumi approached him, she suddenly felt nauseous. Fudo, concerned, mentioned that this was likely because she used an unfamiliar technique. He tried to help her, but she kept hitting him. Confused, Fudo asked what was wrong and urged her to explain why she was acting this way. While angrily punching him, Desumi revealed that she had seen him at the cafe with Haru. One of her punches landed squarely on Fudo's face, and he finally understood what she was upset about. He quickly told her it wasn't what she thought and that she was misunderstanding the situation. Blocking her attacks, Fudo explained that he had only been teaching Haru about muscle training. Although Desumi knew Fudo wasn't the type to cheat, she couldn't help feeling jealous seeing him with Haru. Desumi admitted her insecurity, saying that Fudo seemed more suited for a feminine girl like Haru than someone like her, whom she considered an outcast. Enraged, she kicked Fudo with all her strength. Fudo didn't deny her feelings but firmly stated that to him, Desumi was the most feminine girl in the world. Frustrated, Desumi retorted that she hadn't used to care about love. But now she felt weak and pathetic because being in love with Fudo had changed her. Letting out all her anger, she attacked him relentlessly. Eventually, she stopped, sighing that perhaps she just wasn't cut out for love. Fudo gently embraced her, admitting that while he might be clumsy, once he makes a decision, he sticks with it until the end. He vowed to love Desumi for the rest of his life and urged her to trust him. His sincerity melted Desumi's heart, and she agreed to believe in him. Meanwhile, Gelato 5 managed to defeat the Gecko monster Culverin Bear once again. Back in the abandoned building, Fudo and Desumi stayed behind talking. Fudo couldn't help but smile, discovering yet another side of Desumi, her surprisingly pessimistic streak. Desumi warned that she still hadn't forgiven him for going on a date after school. Fudo reassured her that it wasn't a date. Smiling, Desumi told him he could make it up to her by promising to take her on a real after-school date. Fudo eagerly agreed and they shook hands, resolving the misunderstanding. However, Haru witnessed the entire interaction, which meant she had discovered their secret relationship. Stepping forward, Haru asked if Fudo was finally done. The next day, Fudo was on his way to the meeting room, looking extremely nervous as he replayed the events of the previous day in his mind. After their conversation, Haru had walked back with him. She hadn't said anything on the way, which made Fudo uneasy. He tried convincing himself that maybe she hadn't realized anything. But when he asked how much of the conversation Haru had overheard, she admitted that she'd been listening since he commented on Dasumi's nausea caused by using the unfamiliar technique. This meant Haru had heard everything from the very beginning. Fudo felt like he was in serious trouble. Negative thoughts flooded his mind as he imagined what might happen next. He pictured Professor Big Gelato being furious with him and his teammates losing trust in him, questioning how he would make amends. Fudo couldn't understand how things had spiraled out of control. Standing frozen in front of the meeting room door, he had no idea what to do. Suddenly, Haru appeared behind him, asking what he was doing. Startled, Fudo stammered as Haru reminded him that the meeting was about to start. Together, they entered the room, where Professor Big Gelato greeted them warmly. The professor even announced that there would be a special announcement that day. Haru mentioned that what she wanted to talk about was her and Fudo. Fudo was startled and nervous for a moment, but it turned out Haru was just informing everyone that she and Fudo would be taking their final exams for a week and would need to leave early. Misaki joked that she'd miss them both. Despite the announcement, Haru remained silent, not just in the training room, but also on the battlefield and at school. This piqued Fudo's curiosity as he wondered why Haru hadn't said anything at all. Eventually, he confided in Dasumi about Haru's silence since the incident. Dasumi, intrigued, tried to guess what Haru's behavior meant, but Fudo was equally clueless. Throughout the week, Haru acted completely normal at work and school, but Dasumi suspected she was plotting something and was keeping an eye on them. Fudo tried to reassure Dasumi not to worry too much, even stepping away to create some distance between them. Suddenly, Dasumi jumped at the sound of rustling bushes behind her. To her relief, it was just a weasel. Frustrated with the tense atmosphere, Dasumi threatened to take out her flail and silence Haru herself. Fudo quickly stopped her, reasoning that Haru might have her own reasons and urging Dasumi to wait a little longer to see what would happen. Still, Dasumi felt Haru's presence nearby. She decided to send Fudo away, instructing him to buy her a drink: a mocha vanilla with skim milk, extra ice cream, and almonds. The complicated order made Fudo write it down so he wouldn't forget. As he left to fetch her drink, Dasumi grinned to herself. She had only sent him away so she could confront Haru alone. Just as Dasumi suspected, Haru finally stepped out in front of her. Without hesitation, Dasumi asked why Haru was still keeping her relationship with Fudo a secret. Haru took a deep breath, summoning her courage, and challenged Dasumi to a fight. That was Haru's real intention, and she hoped Dasumi would accept her challenge. Haru transformed into Gelato Pink, even addressing Dasumi by her full name in school. Shocked, Dasumi wondered how Haru had discovered her identity. Haru attacked without hesitation, but Dasumi effortlessly blocked the strike. Haru didn't back down, using all her strength to fight Dasumi. Despite her efforts, Dasumi calmly deflected every punch and kick. Eventually, Haru ran out of energy and collapsed to the ground. Dasumi observed that Haru's fighting technique was still underdeveloped, likely because she hadn't been part of Gelato 5 for very long. Dasumi advised her to stop the fight, but Haru refused to give up and got back on her feet. She launched another attack, only for Dasumi to knock her down with a single blow. When Haru regained consciousness, Dasumi told her to stay still for a while. Haru admitted her defeat, praising Dasumi for her incredible strength. Dasumi, still puzzled, asked Haru about her true intentions. Haru confessed that she had joined Gelato 5 because she loved Fudo. Over time, she began to suspect that Fudo had a girlfriend. She never imagined that his girlfriend would turn out to be the enemy's commander, which explained why she resented Dasumi so much. Haru then revealed that she actually knew Dasumi from the past. She recounted how years ago she had been bullied by some thugs. Dasumi had come to her rescue, beating up the bullies and encouraging Haru to grow up strong. Smiling at the memory, Haru expressed her gratitude. Dasumi, surprised, realized that Haru was the same little girl she had helped back then. Haru, in turn, admitted that she had never expected Dasumi to be the Princess of Death. She added that, at first, she thought she might be able to steal Fudo's affection if Dasumi had grown weak from falling in love. But now, after their fight, she had to acknowledge that Dasumi was still incredibly strong. Dasumi asked Haru why she was going to such lengths when she could easily ruin her relationship with Fudo without doing any of this. Haru replied that when Fudo was with Dasumi, he smiled in a way she had never seen before. She couldn't bring herself to take away the happiness that Fudo and Desumi shared. As Haru broke down in tears, Desumi suddenly hugged her and began crying as well. Surprised, Haru asked why Desumi was crying too. Desumi kept sobbing, which caused both of them to cry even louder together. At that moment, Fudo came running over to Desumi. He apologized for not being able to find the exact drink she had requested, but then he froze in shock at the sight of Haru lying in Desumi's lap. Concerned, he asked what was going on. Desumi calmly told him to be quiet because Haru had just fallen asleep. Still startled, Fudo couldn't help but think Desumi might have silenced Haru in her own way. Eventually, the three of them began walking home together. Throughout the walk, Haru kept smiling. She said she would support Fudo and Desumi's relationship, but as they parted ways, she leaned in and whispered to Desumi that if the opportunity ever presented itself, she wouldn't hesitate to steal Fudo away. Desumi was taken aback by Haru's comment. Before leaving, Haru cheerfully told them to get along and then walked off. That day, the executives of Gakko were holding their monthly meeting. Bosslar, as the highest leader, was about to announce the monthly report for the Princess series, the results of battles, negative energy collection, spirit enthusiasm, and so on. The team in first place overall was the Bear team. The Deaf Princess took first place with 4920 points, while the Animal Princess came in second with 550 points. The Deaf Princess was praised for being active in proposing plans, always participating in battles, and being a role model for evil. She had earned the highest score after beating up Red Gelato badly. Kyoko, the Steel Princess, also praised the Deaf Princess for her power, but the Animal Princess didn't seem happy with the rankings. Desumi was asked to comment as the number 1, and she simply said that she was happy. As a reward, Desumi received a Super Bosslar doll. The Animal Princess then stood up dissatisfied, saying that Desumi always got in her way. She can challenge Desumi to a duel. Desumi calmly told her to relax and even handed the Super Bosslar doll to the Animal Princess. However, the Animal Princess slammed the doll and stormed off. Meanwhile, in the Gakko cafeteria, the Gakko soldiers were enjoying their meal. As Desumi was getting her food, she overheard the Animal Princess talking about her. The Animal Princess was upset with Desumi and was confident she would beat her to take the top spot. Kyoko laughed and asked if it would really be that easy to take the first place. The Animal Princess, annoyed, told Kyoko, who was in last place, not to comment like that. Desumi understood that the Animal Princess saw her as an enemy, hated losing, and had a very volatile mood. Kyoko, the Steel Princess, was someone who did as she pleased, appeared competitive, and a bit strange. They made for a fun duo. Suddenly, Kyoko shared with the Animal Princess that she had a concern because she was in love with someone. The Animal Princess, uninterested, dismissed it as boring. Desumi, however, stepped closer and asked Kyoko to just tell her. Both of them were surprised when Desumi approached. Desumi said that falling in love was amazing. Kyoko asked if Desumi was interested in someone, and Desumi nodded. The Animal Princess then realized that Desumi was like that. Desumi became curious about the person Kyoko liked. Kyoko said the person she loved was wild but understanding. Desumi gave a cute expression after hearing Kyoko's answer, which made the Animal Princess shiver. Kyoko revealed that the person she liked was a co-worker, and the Animal Princess reminded her that workplace romances were not allowed and that Kyoko should just give up. Kyoko knew it wasn't allowed, but she couldn't stop herself. The Animal Princess pointed out that it already broke the rules. Desumi felt a flutter in her chest and said that she understood those feelings. The Animal Princess was shocked by Desumi's response. Desumi then said that sometimes it was okay to break the rules and that she would support Kyoko. The Animal Princess wondered why Desumi was so enthusiastic. Kyoko thanked Desumi, but the Animal Princess continued to warn that it couldn't happen. Desumi then asked what Kyoko's plan was after that, and the Animal Princess realized they hadn't been listening to her warning. Kyoko planned to confess her love to the person, and Desumi supported her. Unfortunately, Kyoko still had doubts because she thought her face was plain. She wasn't good at her work, and she didn't feel attractive as a woman. So even if she confessed, she felt like it was impossible for her love to be accepted. Desumi reassured Kyoko that she could confess her love by embracing her femininity and gaining the courage to express her feelings. The Animal Princess warned them, as evil forces, not to talk about femininity. Kyoko then asked if she could do that, and Desumi was very confident that she could, promising to support her. Kyoko decided to give it a try, and Desumi was happy, encouraging all three of them to keep pushing forward together. However, the Animal Princess didn't want to get involved. Desumi then invited both the Animal Princess and Kyoko to do a few activities to enhance their femininity. They started with Pilates, which is believed to improve both mental and physical beauty. Desumi asked the Animal Princess to stay focused, but the Steel Princess just lay down exhausted. The next activity was chopping fish, but that seemed too difficult. They then tried reading a book, but unfortunately, Kyoko ended up falling asleep. They moved on to painting their nails, but instead of painting her nails, Kyoko ended up painting her fingers. Next, they tried yoga on the pool mat, which is supposed to strengthen core muscles and give the body a beautiful shape. Unfortunately, Kyoko ended up sinking into the water. She realized that she wasn't really the kind of woman who could do anything and chose to give up. She thanked Desumi and the animal princess for sticking by her. The animal princess then said that her confidence had completely vanished. At that moment, Gekko was battling against Gelato 5 with the Gekko monster, Chulverin Bear, and the Moonlight Warriors fighting against the Gelatos. Meanwhile, as usual, Desumi and Fudo separated from the group to find a quiet place to talk. Desumi shared that she was fighting for Kyoko, who, like her, lacked self-confidence. But Desumi's actions were hurting Kyoko instead. It turned out that confessing love and being in a relationship wasn't as easy as she thought. Desumi then asked Fudo what he expected from his girlfriend. Fudo replied that he didn't expect anything as long as Desumi was by his side. He didn't need anything more. Desumi didn't believe him. She was sure there had to be something he wanted, maybe for her to be a better cook. Fudo loudly said that he didn't expect anything because he loved Desumi just as she was. His answer made Desumi blush and she called him silly. She thanked him, saying that she felt happy. Fudo then asked if his answer helped, and Desumi said it did, although she realized that she had forgotten something really important. Desumi and the animal princess entered Kyoko's room, where they saw that Kyoko had locked herself inside and created an iron labyrinth. Once she did that, she wouldn't move and it became dangerous to approach her. Desumi ended up breaking one of the metal bars, and the animal princess scolded her because that would trigger an automatic attack. Desumi admitted she was wrong and told Kyoko that she didn't mean to change. It was okay to have weaknesses because Kyoko was enough just as she was. The metal bars continued to attack Desumi automatically. She approached Kyoko, and just as the bars were about to stab her, the animal princess quickly destroyed them. Desumi then removed Kyoko's mask and saw that she was crying. Desumi suggested that Kyoko shouldn't give up on love. She knew that deep down, Kyoko didn't want to give up and didn't want to deny her feelings of love. Kyoko admitted it and thanked her friends, saying that because of them she had gained the courage to go on. Kyoko realized that she couldn't do everything and she didn't have any special charm, but she could show herself for who she truly was and confess her feelings. Kyoko took off her metal suit, revealing her very large chest. The animal princess felt insecure because her chest was flat. She angrily said that she hoped Kyoko would be rejected by the man she loved. Kyoko immediately confessed her love to the Gekko monster, Chulverin Bear, and they ended up becoming a couple. Desumi and the animal princess watched from a distance, with the animal princess surprised to find out that Kyoko's love was for the Gekko monster, Chulverin Bear. Desumi was happy to see Kyoko's happiness. Catapult Snake was eating in the cafeteria when suddenly the Gekko monster, Chulverin Bear, came over and treated him to some food. Catapult Snake thanked him, but in return, Chulverin Bear asked if he could borrow Kyoko, the Steel Princess, for a while. Catapult Snake agreed, even jokingly asking if the Gekko monster was serious since Kyoko was quite clueless. Upon hearing that, Chulverin Bear got angry and demanded that Catapult Snake not insult Kyoko. The battle between Gekko and Gelato 5 began, but the Gekko monster brought Kyoko along to fight with him. They were both fired up for the fight, even calling it a love attack. The Gelatos were puzzled as to why Kyoko, who was from a different team, was fighting alongside them. Hayato, the blue Gelato, decided to call Fudo for backup. However, he was stopped by Haru, who told him that Fudo wasn't coming. Hayato insisted that Fudo was supposed to be there, but Haru remained firm, stating that Fudo wouldn't show up. If Hayato was still determined to go, he'd have to fight and defeat Haru first. Hayato was confused, but in the end he chose to return to the battlefield. Haru turned toward Fudo and Desumi, hoping they would praise her. Fudo and Desumi thanked Haru and she felt pleased before heading off to the battle. Desumi asked Fudo if he was hungry and pulled out some food from her bag neatly arranged. Fudo thanked his mom for bringing him into a world where he could live in the same era as Desumi. Desumi thought Fudo was being too dramatic. Just as Fudo was about to take a bite of his food, Desumi suddenly pulled the box away and said that according to relationship specialists, couples should eat together and feed each other. Fudo replied that he had heard the same thing before and wanted to make it happen. He thanked God for creating such a wonderful world. Desumi hit him lightly, telling him not to be so extra. They both prepared to feed each other. Desumi took a deep breath and offered the first bite to Fudo. Fudo immediately opened his mouth, ready to accept the bite from Desumi. But suddenly, he complained about a sharp pain in his stomach. Desumi didn't understand what was happening and Fudo was in so much pain. He pointed to his mouth and Desumi thought he was asking her to feed him. but she refused, noticing how serious Fudo's condition was. Fudo then said that his last breath might be coming soon. Desumi began to cry and still wouldn't feed him, and in the end, Fudo lost consciousness. Desumi panicked and screamed for Haru. 3 days later, Fudo's condition improved at the hospital. Professor Big Gelato said that according to the doctors, Fudo could go home the next day. Misaki commented that the strong Fudo couldn't even beat appendicitis. Fudo apologized for causing so much trouble for his friends. Misaki, taking the initiative, peeled an apple and was about to feed Fudo a piece. Just as Fudo was about to accept the apple, he suddenly remembered that it had to be Desumi who fed him first. Fudo quickly shut his mouth. Misaki asked him to open up and eat the apple, but seeing Fudo refusing, Haru understood what was going on. She jumped toward Misaki and ate the apple that was meant for Fudo. Misaki was baffled by Haru's silly behavior. Haru smiled at Fudo and Professor Big Gelato reminded him to take care of himself. Their friends said their goodbyes and Fudo went back to sleep. Suddenly, a woman came in to feed Fudo a piece of apple. Fudo thought it was Desumi feeding him, but it turned out to be his mother. Upon hearing her voice, Fudo quickly turned his back on her. Fudo's mother brought him a change of clothes and he thanked her. Before leaving, his mother asked him to eat the apple and then said goodbye, mentioning that she had to go home because she had a volleyball event to attend with the other moms. Fudo became convinced that this was all happening because his mother had bad intentions. Just as Fudo was about to start weightlifting, Desumi suddenly stopped him from working out his muscles. She reminded him that his stitches might reopen. Desumi had heard that Fudo could go home the next day, so she came to visit because she wanted to see him in a situation that wasn't usual for him. Desumi asked if Fudo was feeling better since his face looked much fresher. Fudo joked that he couldn't die before Desumi fed him. Desumi laughed and patted his stomach, telling him not to be so dramatic. She pulled the curtains closed and sat beside him on his bed, then fed him a piece of apple. Desumi held up the apple slice and Fudo opened his mouth, ready to accept his first bite from her. The first bite went smoothly and Desumi asked how it felt to be fed by her. Fudo replied that the apple tasted much better than any food he had ever had. Just as they were about to get closer again, Fudo's mother appeared to tell him that his dad would pick him up tomorrow. Fudo was annoyed that his private moment with Desumi was interrupted by his mother. Fudo's mom then asked Desumi if she played volleyball as they were short on players for their game. She unexpectedly pulled Desumi along to join her, and Fudo's time with Desumi was completely ruined. Desumi joined Fudo's mom in the volleyball game. She received a pass from Fudo's mom and quickly made a smash, leading their team to victory. Fudo's mom thanked Desumi for helping and Desumi, enjoying herself, said she'd love to play again. Fudo's mom admitted that it had been wrong to interrupt Desumi feeding Fudo earlier. Desumi was caught off guard and became flustered. Fudo's mom reassured her, saying there was no need to feel embarrassed, as she herself was like that with Fudo's dad. She mentioned that she had once been very beautiful and showed a photo of herself with little Fudo when he was a toddler. Little Fudo was absolutely adorable, and Desumi couldn't help but compliment him on how cute he was. Before leaving, Fudo's mom gave Desumi some advice to take care of Fudo, and Desumi promised she would.